Hey there, Pat.
How's it going? Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you just fine, and I think I'm getting to the stream, the chat right now myself. So, how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks for having me on board for your podcast. I didn't know you did this a couple times a week. You do this?
Yeah, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I like.
Wow, that's pretty regular. I wouldn't have the energy for that.
Every once in a while, I have to skip a day or two, but usually because of holiday or something. But yeah, it gives me a chance to get to know what the people, my my people think. If I can,
People of the world.
people of the world think what they like, what they want to see. What videos they want to see, and I like talking to them. I really consider them, very very fun. So
That's cool. You have that sort of direct feedback. I usually don't have the time for that sort of thing. Wish I did, but now I'm going to start doing a once a month video kind of vlog thingy. But maybe I'll do it live on Ustream like you do. Maybe I'll just do that like once a month, just to say hi to people, take questions, and just chat a little bit.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. I think um, we always come to join our master in scenic Colorado Springs. It's a yeah, you get to know a lot about people and what they like and what they don't like and what they even suggest. And I get some people who just come in to say hi. Sometimes I get some people who are very, very regular. And you get to know them, and I think if you're going to have a fan base, it's important to touch base with the fans. But
Oh, of course. I mean, my feedback for the most part has been I get a lot of weird comments on my YouTube page,
mhm.
which is some's pretty funny,
You do
and
get a
I get
lot.
random emails. But really, it's just been mostly the YouTube page. My website doesn't get a huge amount of traffic, but there's some comments there, and more people are starting to comment on the videos when I post there. But yeah, something like this would be great. Actually, I don't know if anyone in the chat room saw my NES charity marathon in mid-October,
Hmm.
but one of the plans is to start doing like a live, like gaming show with me versus Ian. Ian, my friend who helped out with the marathon, and unfortunately, Ian's been sick for the past month or so. But we're going to start that up in the new year. It's going to be called Geek versus Geek, and we're just going to play each other in NES games and TurboGrafx games. And because people really got a kick out of that when we were doing that during the marathon, because we kind of like go at each other fairly easily and just kind of cut into each other. And if anyone in the chat saw any of our, competitive matches at say Tecmo World Wrestling or Pro Wrestling or Ice Hockey or Blaze of Steel, it's a blast playing against them. So yeah, in the new year, we're going to start doing that on Ustream, hopefully.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, and I did catch. Well, I've seen the replay of your recordings of the best parts of your 24 hour. How did you? Well, before we go into that, let me tell everybody. This is Pat the NES Punk joining me on here. He's actually been somebody that I've been watching for quite some time. Actually, for almost about since I started doing videos. He's just really a very fun entertainer and quite the internet personality, and it's really a pleasure to have you on here, man. So um,
First off, thank you. Second of all, let's keep the crowd's expectations really low. Okay.
well, you have a story. You're very personal and personable in your videos, and that's actually what I really like about him. But about your 24 hour, how did you start to arrange that? I mean, to do a 24-hour charity and to get that off the ground and arranged, how did you start?
Well, the stupidly silly part about that was I thought about doing some sort of just marathon because no one that I knew about was even celebrating the 25th anniversary of the NES, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't see anyone doing anything for it. And
Yeah.
being that that's my primary system, it's in my moniker. I was like, I have to do something. It'd be a disservice not only to myself, to the fans, but to the system not to do something for it. So I wasn't going to do something really hardcore until about only a month before. I was talking to my friend, and my friend AJ, and he goes to me, "Why don't you do an NES playing marathon?" And I never told him about my idea to do it. And once he said that, I'm like, "Wow, it makes a lot of sense. If you're suggesting it, and that I'm thinking of doing it, let's do it." But then I thought, why not just do it? Do it for charity. So it only took we only had about a month to put it together, but I contacted sponsors,
Really?
had to buy the equipment. I'd never used Ustream before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
We had to figure out how to split the signal, blah, 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 blah. And more importantly, we had to clean over 750 games, pre-clean them and test them all. So it was grueling, and I still don't know how we got it all done in that limited amount of time. But it came out pretty well, and it actually ended up going 31 hours of play time. We estimated 28.
Wow.
But we didn't take into account how dirty the system gets, and how even though if you pre-clean Nintendo games, any residual dirt on the pins of the cart will get onto the system of the pin and just muck it up anyway. So we had to clean the systems every, say, 75 to 100 games and swap them out, and it was an ordeal, but we got through it.
Wow. That's amazing. How did you contact sponsors? Who did you think? Well, somebody would be interested in this. How did you? Who sponsored you? Names. Give me some sponsors.
The sponsors we had: RetroWare TV, who hosts my videos.
Oh.
Screw Attack sponsored. A local game store sponsored. And NintendoAge.com sponsored. They were the first on board. NintendoAge.com is a fantastic site if you're an NES or old school Nintendo collector because there's tons of information.
Uh-huh.
Those are the hardest of the hardcore NES collectors on that site. If you think I'm hardcore, I may be in the top maybe 5% of NES collectors, but there are people that are even way more hardcore than I am on that site. It's kind of scary, actually.
Wow.
So they all got in touch. I contacted other sites as well. A few never got back to me, which is a shame because obviously the more sponsors you had, the more sort of publicity, the more money we would have raised. It was with Child's Play charity, and we ended up raising a little bit over $8,000.
Excellent. I love Child's Play. 100% of the donations go to them, unlike Jerry's Kids, where only like 66 to 72% goes to the people. So
they have very, very little admin costs there.
Yeah.
It's almost minimal. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things we looked at in choosing a charity.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we got some questions from the groups. Anthony Russell actually asks, "Do you like punk?" What kind of music do you listen to?
Punk music?
Yeah.
The thing with the NES punk name is that I don't necessarily associate it with being punk music. It's sort of the attitude. Not to give too much personal information away, but if someone's around me for a while, eventually someone will say, "You're such a, just such a punk." Not in a positive way. And that's kind of where the name comes from. I did listen in college to a little bit of punk. More pop punk. I actually shot a movie in college that had a lot of pop punk as the soundtrack.
Very interesting.
But in terms of music, I listen to mostly anything. It's kind of boring to say that, but I listen to classic rock, alternative, classical, electronic. I actually made electronic music in college.
Really?
So yeah, it runs the gamut. I love 80s music too. I guess that goes along with the whole NES thing.
Yeah. That's very cool. Now, how do you feel about Retro Hunters? The Retro Hunters actually say you inspired their series. Have you seen the Retro Hunters?
I have seen a couple of episodes, and I don't know the guy's name, but he did get in touch with me, and he gave me a lot of praise, which was cool. And he said, "Yeah, you're the inspiration for the series." It's cool, man. Flea markets are awesome. I recommend anyone go out just to get out of the house early on a Sunday morning, get some fresh air, and make sure you bring some antibacterial wipes or something. But
yes, completely. There's a lot of
like
dirty things there.
it's almost like at this point the flea markets are a steady part of my life, and if I miss it on a weekend, I'll start like shaking almost, like I'll go through withdrawal, flea market withdrawal.
That's amazing. It's funny how something like that can become ingrained. It just becomes a regular thing, and you miss. You enjoy that sort of. I love the episodes, and with your buddy Frank. That's he's a riot. Oh my gosh, he's
The funny thing about Frank is that he's not putting on an act. He just is naturally funny and outgoing, and so I started to drag him to the flea markets. Well, they're out here. They're called the swap meet out here, and he was just hysterical. And I started saying to myself, why am I not recording him? And, like, it didn't make any sense not to. Like, there's so many funny things that I never even got to record that would have been hysterical. So I actually have the recent Flea Market Madness Volume 2 from last week. That was actually shot in July. And so that shows how far behind I am on actually editing videos, which isn't good. But I have about 4 more shot, and they're just sitting there collecting dust. Well,
really
virtually collecting dust on my heart. Yeah. That's usually my modus operandi, is that I'll shoot stuff and take about 8 months to edit it. I don't know if you saw my Panic Restaurant review or not.
Yes, I did.
But that was shot a year before I edited it.
Really?
About 11 months. Yes. And the same for the follow-up, M82 for the Win. Well, then again, I moved last year. That had something to do with it. But yeah, I'm always behind. I shot something in January that I still haven't edited, a review.
Wow.
I'm getting better, but yeah, it's kind of tough with my schedule. But I want to put out at least one video a month, and that's sort of the schedule I'm on right now. Actually maybe 2 videos a month, I guess, if you count the Spoonie stuff and the Highlander stuff and like Comic-Con and things like that. But yeah, I'm always behind. Sorry, everyone, but yeah.
But so. How did you get the idea for doing videos? I mean, who? I mean, obviously, some people watch videos and they say, "Wow, I can do that." That's how I kind of got started. I watched AVGN, and then I also watched Lee Still Gaming. I thought, oh, gosh, I can do that, and so I got into it that way. How did you get? Gosh, I can do that sort of thing. I want to do that sort of thing.
Well, I could always film. I mentioned before in college, which, wow, it's getting farther and farther away, depressingly enough. I did a film in college, I did a feature-length film. It was my first film. It was very stupid of me to do that. I should have did a short film, but I did that. I did a couple of short films. I did a couple of kind of strange business videos. One which got me fired.
Really?
That's a long story. Yeah. So I always loved film and writing. I've written a couple of screenplays too. So around, what was it, 2008, I'd followed James's work, AVGN. I probably discovered his work, I guess, the fall of 2006. Someone turned me on to the videos. But it wasn't a religious follow, but was watching those. And then, obviously, this whole time, I've been a big NES collector, and I have a decent amount of knowledge. So I guess it was around early 2008 where I really started to pay attention more to reviewers out there. And I hate to say, at least on YouTube, most were just god-awful. They just had no knowledge of what they were playing. A lot of them, you could tell, were 14-year-old kids on an emulator with a bed. Those really cheap, long, thin microphones that used to come with, like, Dell computers.
Oh, yes. And scratchy, and they sound awful.
And you can hear them typing as they played on their emulator, which, to me, you cannot use a keyboard to play an NES game.
No.
That's like sacrilege. So I started thinking, why not do my own videos? Because I can't do a worse job. I don't think. I hope not. And I actually have something to say in my videos, I hope. So that's really where it came from.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, even I've got an emulator myself. I very rarely play it, but I even went to retrousb.com. Not a plug. I'm actually telling people, I always tell people to go there. And they have an adapter for a USB. And they even, I forgot that I had this even, but they've even got one for the Wii. It's a GameCube adapter for your NES. And I use this all the time because, just like you said, the only way to play NES games
Oh, of course.
is with a
There's
controller.
actually for the Wii, they actually have a I forget if it's called like a tri adapter, but there's an adapter that'll work with Super Nintendo, N64, and Nintendo, I believe. It's like